He was sentenced to life. There was a confession. There was a witness. There was forensic evidence, and the jury didn't hesitate. The courtroom believed the case was airtight. It wasn't. Years later, DNA would reveal the unthinkable. The wrong man was locked away, while the real perpetrator walked free. And his story is not rare. It's not isolated. It's not ancient history. Tonight, we read diving into wrongful conviction cases that didn't just free innocent people. They exposed cracks in the American justice system that stunned the nation. Because when the system fails, it doesn't always explode. Sometimes it collapses quietly. In America, justice rests on a promise, innocent until proven guilty. But in courtroom after courtroom, that promise has quietly reversed itself. Because once a suspect is identified, the system doesn't always ask, "Did he do it?" It starts asking, "How do we prove he did?" And that subtle shift changes everything. Over the last few decades, DNA testing has exonerated more than 300 people nationwide. Not because the system corrected itself, because science forced it to. And in many of those cases, the truth came dangerously close to staying buried forever. He was young, no prior record, no lawyer present, interrogated for hours. Detectives told him they had evidence. They didn't. They said witnesses saw him. They hadn't. They claimed forensic results proved his guilt. There were none. Sleep-deprived, overwhelmed, terrified. Eventually, he said the words they were waiting for. "I did it." That confession became the cornerstone of the prosecution's case. Jurors heard his voice. They saw him on video. They watched him admit to the crime. And once a confession enters a courtroom, doubt shrinks. He was convicted, but something didn't add up. Details in his statement didn't match the crime scene. Timelines were inconsistent. Descriptions were wrong. It didn't matter. The jury believed what they heard. Years later, DNA testing, technology unavailable at the time of trial, told a completely different story. The biological evidence didn't match him. It matched someone else. The confession wasn't proof. It was pressure. And here's the disturbing part: false confessions are not rare. Research shows they are a leading cause of wrongful convictions, especially among young suspects. If DNA hadn't evolved, he would still be behind bars today, and no one would have questioned it. But not all wrongful convictions begin in an interrogation room. Some begin with fear, a late-night robbery, a terrified victim, a suspect lineup. She pointed immediately. That's him. Her voice didn't shake. Her certainty didn't waver. And in a courtroom, confidence is persuasive. Jurors trust confidence. It feels like the truth, but memory is fragile. Under stress, the brain doesn't record events like a camera. It reconstructs them, and reconstruction can be wrong. In this case, there was no DNA, no fingerprints, no physical evidence, just a confident eyewitness. He was convicted. Years later, post-conviction DNA testing identified another man entirely, someone already in the criminal system. The real perpetrator? The eyewitness wasn't lying. She was mistaken. And that mistake cost an innocent man years of his life. The case revealed something deeply uncomfortable. Certainty does not equal accuracy. But in a courtroom, they look identical. For decades, certain forensic techniques were presented as nearly infallible. Hair comparison analysis, bite mark matching, even early fingerprint interpretation methods. Experts testified with confidence, in my professional opinion, to a reasonable degree of scientific certainty. Jurors heard the word science and stopped questioning. In one case, a forensic expert testified that a bite mark on the victim matched the accused. That testimony helped secure a conviction. Years later, an independent forensic review concluded that bite mark analysis lacked reliable scientific foundation. In simple terms, it wasn't solid science. DNA testing later excluded the accused completely. The certainty that persuaded the jury was built on unstable ground. And that case forced courts nationwide to reevaluate how forensic evidence is presented. Because when science is overstated, juries don't hear possibilities, they hear proof. But there is one category of wrongful conviction that unsettled the country even more: prosecutorial misconduct. In some cases, innocence didn't emerge through new technology. It emerged through hidden evidence. Documents later revealed that prosecutors failed to disclose critical information to the defense. Alternative suspects, inconsistent witness statements, evidence that could have created reasonable doubt. But jurors never heard it. The defendant was convicted. Years later, appeals uncovered what had been withheld. The conviction was overturned. But here asks the question that shook public trust. If that evidence had been shared from the beginning, would the trial have ended differently? When winning becomes the priority, justice can quietly step aside. And that realization unsettled courts across the country. When exonerees walk free, headlines celebrate. Wrongfully convicted man released. DNA clears innocent prisoners, but freedom does not erase lost years. Careers vanish, families fracture, parents miss childhoods, relationships dissolve. Some receive compensation, many don't. Even when they do, money cannot restore birthdays, weddings, or funerals missed behind bars. And the psychological damage often lingers long after release. The system may offer an apology, but it cannot return time. Wrongful convictions often begin with assumption. Investigators form a theory. Once a suspect fits the narrative, confirmation bias takes hold. Evidence supporting the theory gains weight. Contradictions lose urgency. Alternative leads fade. In high-profile or violent crimes, pressure builds quickly. Communities demand answers. The media demands arrests. And speed can overpower caution. Most people within the system believe they are pursuing justice. But belief does not guarantee accuracy. These cases did trigger reform. Mandatory recording of interrogations, improved eyewitness lineup procedures, stronger disclosure requirements, expanded access to DNA testing. But reform is reactive. It follows damage. It follows years lost. It follows public outrage. And it often arrives too late for the person already convicted. Here's the hardest part to confront. Every case we discussed was overturned because something new surfaced. New DNA, new review, new evidence. But what about the cases where nothing new appears? What about convictions built solely on a pressured confession, a mistaken eyewitness, overstated forensic claims? Without biological evidence to retest, without new witnesses, without media attention, how many are still there, sitting in cells, serving sentences? Maintaining innocence no one believes. Wrongful convictions don't always look dramatic. Sometimes they look routine. A confession, a witness, an expert, a jury, a verdict, and certainty. The American justice system was built to protect the innocent. But history proves it is not immune to error. And the next case that shocks the nation may not be a case from the past. It may already be unfolding right now.